As Senator Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments, said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist.
That, of course, is Democratic Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois confirming President Trump's comments calling Haiti and African nations, SHIT, holes. Dick Durbin was in the room and confirmed President Trump's comments. But here's the thing. He was one of 7 lawmakers in the room, and we are working on getting reaction from the other senators who are there. There is the lineup on your screen. I can see right across the top. You've got Lindsey Graham. You've got Dave Perdue. You've got Tom Cotton, Dick Durbin, who we heard from. It's funny that you've got Dave Perdue there from Georgia. Dave Perdue's background is in corporate America. If you were a CEO, right, if Jamie Dimon, if Lloyd Blankfein, if Steve Schwarzman, a close business ally of President Trump, uttered anything like this, they'd lose their jobs. No, and they'd lose their investors. So I wonder, you know, Dave Perdue, given Dave's background, what a difficult position this puts him in and what he thinks about it.
Look, I mean, the only possible moral position they can take is to utterly and publicly and unequivocally denounce the president. But what they really have to do is also separate from the presidency itself, because what Republicans have become great, experts at doing is saying, well, those comments were, as Paul Ryan said a couple years ago, a textbook definition of racism. But this doesn't prevent us from working with him, praising him, flattering him, showing up at his events. So as you were saying, they are all complicit. That is the fundamental issue here. And by the way, we keep focusing on the word. First of all, the only outhouse in America today is the president's brain. But the issue is not the word. Right. The issue isn't even saying that a lot of countries in the world are poor and backward and have terrible problems. The issue is the failure to understand that 99.9% of Americans came from desperate, backward places, or what those countries were at the time. And the essence of America is this astonishing faith we have in ordinary human beings, poor human beings, backward human beings. People brought here against the will to transform themselves and transform the world. And if you don't believe that, you don't believe in America. And that's what the president's problem is.
Well, also, I think it's important to point out, what is the impact of this? You have the President of the United States, a leader. This is the person who leads the country. This is the man who represents us on the world stage. What does it say to people who are from these communities that he's targeting this week, right? Because next week it'll be somebody else. What he does is he makes people from Haiti, he makes people from African countries a target for hate crimes. He makes those people subject to vitriol. He makes those people a target for discrimination. So that's, we can't just talk about this of, oh, he said these bad words and they're really terrible. No, no, no. We have to look at the impact of the words. And people who are brown, like me, feel the impact of his words every single day. We can feel it. There is a difference in how we are treated. And so we can't walk away from that. These words mean something.
So this is what's so interesting about that, because the people who we hear say all the time, watch what Trump does, not what he says, are not the people who feel the impact of this. Right. You see big business leaders. When I was on Christmas break, when I was on vacation in Florida, there were people saying, listen, we know Donald says crazy things. We don't like it. But these policies, they'll be good for the country. Now, put that aside. We can argue about the policies, on one side. But to those privileged, extraordinarily successful Americans who stand by President Trump. I think about a great businessman, someone who celebrates immigrants, Ken Langone, who supports President Trump's policies. Or I think about Steve Schwarzman, who's one of the best philanthropists in New York City. And these individuals have the benefit of stepping back and saying, is this the right thing? Should we think about the impact of President Trump's words? Because we know the administration walks us back. Look at the market. The market ignores the president's words because they say, oh, it's just rhetoric.
I think the thing that I would want from business leaders is simple honesty about the role of immigrant labor in this country. We pretend in this country all the time that we can just kick everybody out. Go back to where you came from. We'll be fine. Those jobs will go to Americans. That is not how labor is constructed in this country right now. It's a huge problem. There was a beautiful article out, a devastating article out from Business Week last week that looked at the role of subcontractors to meatpacking plants that hired undocumented immigrants and then subjected them to awful conditions, right? That is a part of the American labor force. Those companies are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. This is business, right? So what I want from business is not just to say a platitude about how immigration is important to America, which of course it is, but let's talk honestly. They can. They can't. It won't happen. And if we pursue more rigid immigration policies, all that does is it drives people out of documentation. It makes their status illegal, and it makes them even less powerful. So
you don't get their tax dollars.
And you don't get their tax dollars.
So if you were conservative, I don't understand how it is that you can have a position that is anti-immigration or anti-making these people, be legal.
Because it's not conservative. It's racism.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to.
And let's be clear that these immigration policies that we're talking about, that Trump is talking about, is immigration from certain countries. Because we know he likes Norway.
Okay,
right?
to that point, because someone on Twitter just said to me, how can the liberal media possibly say, one immigration from one country is racist and not from another? I mean, no pun intended, it's black and white. If you're saying those from black countries, i.e. Haiti and some African nations, should go home,
and
but Norwegians come on over, or smart Asians should come. I mean, that's rooted in racism, Brett.
Well, of course that is, and that gets to the hypocrisy and
also ignorance.
Well, exactly, because look, you can go back 110 years when Congress was beginning the restrictionist impulses in Congress to stop immigration, which had made America the greatest country in the world by the end of the 19th century, and all of it is rooted in the idea that certain kinds of immigrants, whether it's Chinese, that's why we had the shameful Chinese Exclusion Act, or people from Central or Eastern or Southern Europe, were inferior people, and that of course led to the restrictions of the 1920s and the tragedies of the 1930s. And this is like a recurring virus in the conservative movement that never goes away. Great Republicans like Ronald Reagan were the ones who spoke so eloquently against him. That's why you read that beautiful quote. But what Trump represents is that nativist wing that goes back to the restrictionists of the early 20th century, to the know-nothings of the mid-19th century.
But I just want you to stay on the know-nothings point, because we have to get back to what's rooted in fact. Yes. If you look at one sector of the job market where you've seen an increase, it's home health care workers.
Absolutely.
People are living longer lives. And you know who take care of senior citizens? Immigrants. You know who take care of the children of households with working mothers or single working dads or two working parents? Immigrants. Try to find a college-educated, a native-born American to do that. You can't find those people in the workforce.
And I think, to go back to what Brett just said, right, let's look back over that whole history of America making arbitrary decisions about what is a good kind of immigration, what is a bad kind of immigration. Nobody at any point in this entire 150-year history could have ever said that group's going to be good and that group's going to be bad, because we've turned out to be wrong every time. You cannot predict. There is no way, there is zero way to look at any group and say you're going to do good here and you're not.
All right, well, here's the thing. The President of the United States does hold the highest office in the land, an office we respect and admire, and we want him to do better and do the best for this country. But the good news is that this country is filled with extraordinary people doing extraordinary things every day, and every person matters and every voice matters. So please stand up and speak your mind, and let's all try to be our best selves today. Thank you all, this amazing panel. I'm sorry, guys, especially Midwin.
Yes.
I'm going to say she was the standout. That wraps us up this hour. I'm Stephanie Rule. I will be back at 11 a.m. with my partner, Allie.